Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is our 25th anniversary event highlighting our programmatic work, and we're really excited to have you guys join us today. With me is Erin Savage, who is the senior manager of our Central Appalachian program and our coal impacts team, who is going to be telling you a lot of information about what we're currently working on with our coal impacts work. So take it away, Erin.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, so I'm Erin Savage. I know some of you on the line. And I do have a few slides, not a lot of text. So I'll just talk through the slides. I think since I'm going to be looking at my slides, if you guys don't mind just holding questions until the end, there's only like 6 slides or so we can go back and do more of a question and discussion once I get through the slides. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Jamie, just chime in if it doesn't look right on your end for me. Thanks. All right, hold on. Actually, sorry, did that wrong. Hold on, I meant to do a. Of course, I screw it up this way. 1 second. Hold on 1 second here. All right, let's try this again. Slideshow. All right, Jamie, chime in if that's not looking right to you.
Looks
all
good.
Right, so awesome. Thanks, Jamie. All right, so I wanted to go through kind of some work that we've done over the last few years and where we're headed next. The main goal of my team, if I could sum it up, is in addressing the impacts of surface coal mining in Appalachia. We focus in Central Appalachia, but we also work with partners across the Appalachian Mountains, southern and northern, and really across the coal fields in other parts of the country as well. All right. All right, so we're going to start out with wins. I'll be honest, I've been working with this team since 2011, and we have gone through a lot of periods where it doesn't feel like we win very often. We set the bar high, so we really try to accomplish big things, and a lot of them are lofty goals that don't always work out. But honestly, the last 12 months or so has been good to us in terms of accomplishing things that we've been working on for years. So 2 of the big wins I wanted to talk about are both federal bills. The first is the Black Lung excise tax. The Inflation Reduction Act, which is known in our work more as reconciliation, budget reconciliation, included a permanent extension of the Black Lung excise tax. So this is a federal fund that provides money to miners to pay for Black Lung healthcare and benefits when there is no coal company to pay those benefits. So in cases where the coal company may have gone bankrupt, or where the miner is just not able to pinpoint a company that needs to take responsibility. This fund has been around for a long time, but it's never been solvent. It's not very adequately funded. Importantly, it is funded through a tax on coal production, and it had been reduced in the recent past. And so this permanent extension is its extension plus increasing it back to its original level in terms of the percentage of each ton of coal. So this is a really big win for us. It's a big win for the Black Lung Association, our main partner in this. We also were working closely with Appalachian Citizens Law Center. And this was, something we've been working on for maybe four years or so prior to this. So it's exciting too, because now we get to kind of take a breath and then meet with the Black Lung Association chapters as well as the ACLC and figure out where we go from here, what new things the Black Lung associations association chapters might want to prioritize. The other big win for us was the reauthorization of the Abandoned Mine Land Fund. This is also a federal fund. It pays for reclamation of mines that were abandoned prior to the passage of the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act in 1977. What we accomplished here was a reauthorization of fee collection. So again, a tax on current coal production for the next 13 years. Importantly, we also secured $11.3 billion for the fund from General Treasury. Kind of similar to the Black Lung Fund, this fund is way underfunded compared to the amount and the cost of outstanding abandoned mine lands that need reclamation. So this influx of $11 billion will go a long way towards helping states finish reclaiming their remaining abandoned mine lands. And you may be thinking, well, okay, so this is the mountaintop removal team, and they are working on health issues, and they're working on pre-1977 abandoned mine lands. How did that come to be? Well, the important thing here is one, these are just really good things to work on, but also both of these funds are funded by fees on current coal production. So in that way, it kind of fits into our whole framework of internalizing the costs of coal mining. These are things that result from both historic and current mining, and they're things that we believe coal companies should be paying for, or in the case especially of black lung, they should be taking the steps to prevent black lung from happening. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. So anyway, really huge wins for us. We're looking forward to seeing how AML funding gets spent in the states that we work in. We want to continue to be involved in that, making sure good AML projects get done in our communities. And this is just a photo back to, I think, 2019, just before the coronavirus pandemic. And we worked with a bunch of partners, including the Alliance for Appalachia, Sierra Club, ACLC, Black Lung Associations, and we did a big trip to DC to take a bunch of miners suffering from black lung to go and speak with their representatives and senators. And so this is a photo of all of us doing a demonstration in the Hart Atrium. And we did it. We had a really moving, short kind of demonstration with some singing, and then we quickly got kicked out of the building, which was what we kind of, it made an impact, to see these poor guys being pushed out of the building. All right, so then the other thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of accomplishments was our team did 2 reports in roughly the last year, both real big reports. And we've done webinars on these in the past, so I won't go into too much detail. But the first report is the Repairing the Damage report. What we did here was we attempted to estimate the amount and the cost of current mines, so not AML, but the mines that are currently held by coal companies that need reclamation across the 8-state region of the East states. So basically Ohio, Pennsylvania, down to Alabama. This is a report I had resisted doing for a long time because it was quite difficult to collect all the data from the state agencies. This is data that probably should be aggregated at the federal level, but it's really not, or at least not done well. And also, it's really difficult to estimate the cost. There just isn't a lot of good data. The state agencies don't do a lot of cost estimates at the individual mine level. So we had to go out on a limb here a bit and really think about how to best estimate the cost and really be rigorous with our methodology and the caveats in terms of how accurate our estimate likely is. So we got it done. We got it published. I'm glad that folks pushed me to do it. I think it's a really important conversation starter regarding the vast amount of reclamation that still needs to be done in our region. Just the highlights from the report are that there are over 600,000 acres of surface mines and surface components of underground mines that still need reclamation in our 8-state region, and the cost to reclaim those mines is likely between $7 and $9 billion. The other report that we did that is related is the Central Appalachian Mine Reforestation Assessment Tool. And we received a grant through National Geographic to do this, and then we worked with our partners at Sky Truth and Downstream Strategies, who do a lot of data research and remote sensing. And we came up with basically a computer-based remote sensing tool to identify formerly mined land and assess how well it's reforesting. So, for example, this cover photo here shows a mine that is in some phase of reclamation, but clearly isn't reforested. It's covered with some grass and hydroseeding, but also some bare ground. So we wanted to be able to identify and quantify those mines. And we came up with a pretty good tool to do so. So, it complements the Repairing the Damage report, and it's also publicly available to really anyone to use the tool. So we can use it going forward to continue to monitor how reclamation is progressing at mines. All right, so now looking forward to what we're still working on. Our next big challenge is modern mine reclamation. As I said about the report, we know that there is a lot of outstanding reclamation that coal companies are supposed to do, but in many cases, they're dragging their feet. They're not getting it done. The bonds that are supposed to provide backup money for reclamation in case coal companies don't complete it themselves, those bonds are often inadequate. And so we really want to figure out, how do we get coal companies to complete as much of this reclamation as possible? How do we get them to do it as quickly, or at least, in a timely manner? And what do we do in cases where they don't do it? What's going to happen if there's a shortfall in bond money? So a few things that we've done so far on this challenge are we, again, working with the Alliance and several other organizations, we held a 2-day summit last spring, so over a year ago, with really anyone and everyone we could think to invite who has a stake in mine reclamation across the country. And we really discussed the whole big picture problem and what we wanted to see done. And from that summit, a smaller group of us worked on drafting proposed legislation. There's no perfect answer to this problem at this point. It has resulted from failures in SMACRA. SMACRA is a very good law as environmental laws go, but it's definitely not perfect. And the way it's implemented at the state level, that also introduces additional problems. So, for example, revisiting bond amounts is getting to be very difficult because it's just kind of too late for a lot of these companies to be able to secure higher bond amounts for a lot of these existing mines. So we came up with a legislative proposal that would provide some additional federal funding as sort of a safety net for the state agencies to use for reclamation in cases of bond forfeiture where the bond is not sufficient. And we added pieces to the law to make sure that this would only be available to state agencies, not directly to coal companies. We don't want to create a coal company bailout situation. And it includes requirements of states so that they improve some of the regulatory procedures that have been inadequate and have led to these problems. We were successful in getting the legislation finalized and introduced. We did that with Representative Lamb from Pennsylvania. And we also had a hearing on the bill in the House Natural Resources Committee. I testified in that hearing. And we also had Elaine Tanner, who is a local community member in Kentucky, who also testified in support of the bill. So the bill it's been introduced, it's out there. Quite frankly, it does not have a clear path forward right now at this time. It was a bit late to get it into the Inflation Reduction Act, and we'll just have to see, going into next year, if we can get the legislation introduced again and figure out, a path forward for it. Legislation, I think, as you all know, is really difficult now, even with the current makeup of Congress, and we also don't know what will happen with the midterms. Regardless, though, one thing that this bill does is it gives us a really clear ability to message and explain this problem to community members, to a broader public, to lawmakers, and also to even have conversations with the state agencies themselves. Other things we've done on modern mine reclamation are really pushing for there to be a director of the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation and Enforcement. Unfortunately, there is not yet a nominee, but we have assurance from Department of Interior and the Biden administration that it is a priority. I think they face a lot of challenges in getting a nominee chosen and confirmed by the Senate. So we have continued to talk with OSMRE and their acting director, as well as people in Department of Interior, about the modern mine reclamation problem, and just pushing OSMRE to do as much as they can to address this problem going forward. And a few other things that I wanted to mention that are kind of top goals looking forward to the next 12 months. Related to modern mine reclamation, we are really focusing on a small group of mines owned by A&G Coal Company in Virginia. We're focused on their 3 largest mines. They are very close to our office in Norton, Virginia, so we're very familiar with these mines. In fact, the photo from the previous slide is one of those mines, Looney Ridge. And we're pushing A&G to get reclamation done at these mines. They have been sitting essentially idled for over 7 years. They are working to do reclamation now. We have been negotiating with the company and Virginia Department of Energy to set reclamation deadlines, and we have been going on citizen inspections along with Southern Appalachian Mountain Stewards and Sierra Club. We're supposed to do those monthly. It ends up kind of working out to every 6 weeks, but we've been doing that for, I think, about a year, going on to the mines to look at the reclamation progress. And we are continuing to talk with the company about getting progress done more quickly, and setting some more strict compliance deadlines for reclamation. So that's really a main goal of ours. Second, as I mentioned earlier, since we've been successful with the black lung excise tax, we are thinking about other things we can do in support of the Black Lung Association chapters. And one of the things that we would like to prioritize is looking into silica data. Silica is a component of a lot of the rock that is found around coal seams that are mined in our area. And it is a primary component of what causes black lung. And we would like to see the Mine Safety and Health Administration increase their silica safety standards and increase their enforcement of the silica standards in mines. So one thing that we could do in support of rulemaking there is analyze compliance data, see if we see anything fishy with it? Does it look like the data is accurate? Are there any reports of data being either falsified or just manipulated in some way based on when coal companies know that the MSHA officials will be around? So we definitely want to look into that and see how we might be helpful. The next thing that we want to do is increase dust monitoring in mine impacted communities. We began dust monitoring within the last couple of years. We have just a few monitors right now. It's a new type of monitoring for us. When I came on over a decade ago, we were doing a lot of stream monitoring. We are still doing that, and we still have some key partners in Tennessee and Virginia doing stream monitoring. But we had sort of resisted doing dust monitoring for a few reasons. One, there wasn't great equipment for it 10 years ago, but there's better equipment now. It's more affordable, more accurate. You can connect it to Wi-Fi and get data remotely. But the other challenge here is that it's just harder to prove where the dust originates. So we can have readings that show us that there's high ultrafine particulate matter, but it's difficult for us to prove definitively, or I should say legally, that the mine or the dust came from a particular mine, as opposed to road dust or diesel exhaust or any number of other air quality concerns. So we're experimenting with various ways that we can utilize that data to make a positive impact in communities. But also the EPA is looking at doing an update to their national ambient air quality standards. And that's not specific to mining, it's ambient air quality standards. So it's nationwide, but we're hoping that the dust monitoring that we do could be used to influence EPA in terms of making those national ambient air quality standards more strict and more protective of communities. And then the last thing I'll point out is just continued tracking of the Black Jewel and Revelation mines. Black Jewel is a company that went bankrupt in 2019, and the case is technically closed, the bankruptcy case itself, but there are a number of permits that weren't purchased by other coal companies. A lot of those are getting reclaimed by the insurers that provide the reclamation bonds. And some of them are near community members we work with, and some of them have ongoing issues like erosion or water quality issues. So we want to make sure we keep following those and make sure that those mines aren't left to further deteriorate and create additional issues. We may be tracking other bankruptcies going forward. We don't necessarily track every bankruptcy in as much detail as we did Black Jewel. We just make decisions depending on how complicated it is, if there are mines with problems, if we have community members contacting us about the mines that are part of the bankruptcies. So it's a little bit of a wait and see case for us in terms of bankruptcies and seeing what that work will entail going forward. All right, I'm going to stop the share. Those are all the slides that I have for you. That is certainly not all of the work that we do. Like I mentioned, we're still doing water monitoring. We're still doing a lot of the traditional work that that you all probably know from our work over the years, challenging new permits, monitoring mines. So feel free to ask questions about any of that work as well. All right, so I think, yeah, Jamie says add questions to the chat, or there's a Q&A chat. Either one would work. I've left you all speechless. Ooh, I knew I was gonna get this question. Bennett asked, did the excise tax go up to 50 cents per ton? And I was actually trying to look that up, what the original amounts were. I believe that's yes. I need to double check on that, Bennett. What I do know is that it went up to whatever the original amount was. It had been halved, and so it was raised back up to what it had been historically.
Don't be shy, folks. We don't get opportunities to talk to Aaron.
All right.
as a
Phyllis asks,
decision.
yeah, I've got one more. Phyllis asks, are we working with any US senators or representatives? Yes. We are lucky to have Chelsea Barnes as our legislative director, and she works a lot with my team. And so she is in contact with a lot of senators and representatives. I'd say we have fairly good luck getting meetings with their staffers who work on our issues, whether those are tax staffers or their environmental staffers. As I said, Representative Lamb introduced the Renew Act, which was the bill that we drafted on mine reclamation. So Representative Lamb really went out on a limb for us doing that. Unfortunately, he is leaving Congress. So we will need to find a new person to introduce that bill in next Congress. He's certainly not the only person that we work with. We do meet with Manchin. I think you all know that he's a very powerful man in Washington these days. We also work with Cartwright quite a bit. Senators Warner and Kane in Virginia have done good things for our work. We just met with Senator Warner in Southwest Virginia on Monday. So we have a pretty good list of contacts who are at least willing to listen to our ideas. All right. Mike Tony asks, what are your thoughts on the EPA's lack of federal outdoor air standards for ultrafine particles, despite evidence they threaten human health? Yeah, good question, Mike. A thing that I learned quickly through this job is that EPA standards, whether they're regarding outdoor air or stream water quality or well water or drinking water standards, they often lag behind available science considerably. I understand why that's the case. It takes a long time for rulemakings to happen. And if the EPA acts quickly or rashly, they risk getting sued. So it's a frustrating process. I wish we lived in a world where we could just look at scientific fact and make rational decisions based on that best research at the time. And of course, update if the research ends up getting updated and showing something different, but that is not the world we live in. So, I would love to see the EPA have stricter standards. I'm hoping that may be accomplished through the update of the ambient air quality standards. But I should add, Mike, that we are not taking lead on that, the update to those standards. We are kind of specifically looking at our coal community work and our dust monitoring there and relying on some of the bigger national organizations who work on a broader range of topics to take the lead on that. So I'm probably not actually the best person to ask about that, but I am looking forward to getting more involved in it in the upcoming really 6 months, because we expect the update to those standards to happen, I think, before the end of the year. if I remember the timeline correctly. All right, Bennett asks, the inclusion of the permanent extension of the excise tax in the Inflation Reduction Act came as a surprise to me. Was it well known that this was included? How did you accomplish this? Yeah, good question. So I think I'm trying to think of what's most important here. We had been working on the excise tax for several years, and what had been happening in previous years was that we were getting 1-year extensions, which meant we just had to, like, as soon as we got a 1-year extension, we basically had to start again right away because it was only a 1-year extension. So we've been working on that. App Voices has been working on that since at least 2019, really probably earlier. I feel like COVID has given me a whole weird sense of time. And of course the Black Lung associations were working on this issue for far longer than that. So we have been working on it for a while. Every time we got an extension, we were pushing for a permanent extension. What happened this time was that we were aware that budget reconciliation was a good opportunity for this bill to get included in a package of bills. Essentially, this Congress, because of the makeup of Congress, it was a good opportunity to get this passed. This really should be a bipartisan bill. To some extent, it may have been, but yeah, this was our best opportunity. So I'll be honest, the way I understand it is it was the meetings that the Black Lung associations had with Senator Manchin. They made this a priority for Manchin, and I do think that Manchin had a big hand in getting that included in the Inflation Reduction Act. That's what I've heard, at least third hand. But I think the important answer is we did have a long ground game pushing this with Manchin, as well as with a lot of other coalfields representatives and senators. All right, Mike, how prevalent are ultrafine particles in fugitive dust from coal mines? Are there other particle sizes that have emerged as more prevalent in coal community dust monitoring? Really good questions, Mike. So I wish we had Matt and Willie, my coworkers, on this call. They have been leading this work a little bit more than I have. If I remember correctly, the monitors that we're using right now, I think, are monitoring PM 2.5. I guess what I'm getting at is our current monitoring is maybe not broad enough for me to answer that question based off our own data. We are not monitoring kind of more larger dust particles. We do that occasionally when we try to identify where dust may be coming from. We literally get a sample, using collection techniques, and send that sample to the lab to analyze what makes up the dust. So is it literal coal dust? Is it silica? But yeah, we need to keep working on, what exactly we should be monitoring, and what the concerns are. I will say preliminarily that when we have gone to communities to put out our monitors for ultrafine particles, usually those are communities that are complaining of dust. So they're complaining of dust that they can see. So that would not be ultrafine particles. So they're complaining of maybe dust off the road, maybe dust from blasting, maybe even kind of smog from the diesel trucks. They probably don't know exactly what they're looking at. All they know is that they can see it. They can see it when it's in the air. They can see it when it lands on their houses or on their vehicles. We get a lot of photos of them wiping visible dust off their otherwise, their formerly clean vehicle, for example. So then we go out and we place these monitors that then that measure the ultrafine particles. So they're actually measuring something different than what the community is seeing. which, they're both important. The ultrafine particles are, I think, more of a health concern than the larger visible particles, but I think in many cases they go hand in hand. But I guess hopefully we'll have more to say as we kind of think through our monitoring and think through what we can do with that data in terms of enforcement. But as I was saying before, part of the reason we haven't done monitoring is because there isn't a really clear enforcement mechanism for us to follow, like there is when we find water pollution in a stream, for example. So, Mike, I don't know if that answered your question. I would be very happy to email with you more about this. Also, maybe put you in touch with Matt and Willie. All right. We technically have 20 more minutes. Don't feel the need to fill up all of my time, but I am happy to stay on and answer more questions. I'm going to check the other chat. Yeah, and Jamie, I just saw that you said you could open it up for folks to talk. Why don't we give that a try? I see Phyllis is raising her hand.
I'm sorry. Do we know? Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
you're muted, Jamie.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can. Yep.
Do we know what percentage of the population in these areas is being affected with the mining? Health-wise or
Oh, health-wise. Ooh, no. I mean, so there were a lot of studies about a decade ago that looked at a lot of associated health issues that probably do have some of that data. They were looking at cancer rates, heart and lung disease, and things like that. We also did a study in, I think it was probably about 2015 or 16, where we looked at like percentage of populations living within certain distances of current surface mines, but that data is a bit dated now. So, it would depend which factors you wanted to look at, like, how many people lived within a certain distance or things like that. What we do know is that we see strong correlation, at least the county level, of people having higher rates of common health issues like heart and lung disease, cancer rates, premature death in counties that have high rates of surface mining. All right. I think Johanna has a hand up. Jamie, do people have to unmute themselves?
Yes, you will be even when I allow the talking permitted, you will need to unmute yourself in order to be heard.
So Joanna, you'll have to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, but also feel free to type it in the chat.
Hey, Aaron.
Hey,
This-
Rick.
This is Rick. Hey there, you remember me?
Of course.
Hey, listen, I spent 28 years, the last 8 of them working with EPA on air quality standards and at Eastman. So I'd love to talk to you guys about how you're doing your monitoring around particularly on particular matter. You're exactly right. Everything I heard you say was right on, just like I always know you're always right on. But I'd like to know a bit more about what you're doing. The fine particulate, particularly, as you said, is the most damaging in terms of health effects. But it's very, very hard to monitor, as you know. You've got to use just about have a special sampling equipment to get down in the 1 micron range. So
Right.
you're doing great. And I did a lot of what you talked about, collecting samples that I knew were not necessarily from our powerhouses, but rather from other sources. And you did exactly the same thing there too. Collect it, get it analyzed, and you tell what it is. So
Yeah.
anyway, if you, I love to chat with you guys. I miss everybody at AV, by the way. I'm in Middle Tennessee now, too kind of far away. I love you all though.
Well, Rick, I'll drop you an email and I'll see if maybe Willie and Matt and you and I could get on a call sometime soon. I'd love to pick your brain on the air monitoring.
Well, the brain is old and somewhat solidified, but I do remember a little bit about it.
Good.
Y'all did a great job as usual. Hey, Jamie,
Hey, Rick, how's it going?
Mm-hmm.
I'm upright. I hope you can't see me.
No, just hear you.
Good.
It looks like maybe Phyllis has another question too.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
But thank you all very much for your concern. My grandfather worked the coal mines when he first came here from Ukraine and could not handle it at all and left very quickly and worked on the Erie Railroad engines in cars in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. So I'm very glad he left. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say, over my decade working here, I've really been pleased over the last few years to see us be able to do things like expand our work out to working with the Black Lung associations. If you had told me 10 years ago that I would have been doing trips to DC with a busload full of coal miners, I probably wouldn't have believed you back when I started. But it's been a really good way for us to broaden our outreach and work with partners who maybe originally might not have seen us as partners. So I've been pleased with the way our work has developed.
And I will say, I had failed to mention at the very beginning, Erin's career with us, and that she's been with us since 2011. So she's a wonderful resource of all of our mountaintop removal and coal mining, coal related work, and beyond that, of course, as well. So we're really lucky to have Erin on staff, and really lucky for her expertise. So please, if you have any other questions,
I'm just
perfect
glad,
resource.
I'm just glad that she posts her running waterfall videos, because it keeps me interested. It scares me to death, by the way.
Yeah, when I'm not working, I'm kayaking.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not kayaking, that's hair. I don't know what that is.
Well, so if no one else has any other questions, I will just thank you guys all again for attending this webinar as part of our 25th anniversary. We do have a couple of more things coming up this year. Right now we have a question mark for October, but we will be emailing folks and letting you know what that is going to be. And then in November, we are going to be hosting a vegan cooking for the holidays webinar. So that'll be a nice little fun one. But please, in the meantime, you can visit our website, appvoices.org, for any of that detail, and also to read more about our work. If you have other specific questions for Erin, you can reach out to her at erin@appvoices.org. And then otherwise, thank you guys. Erin, do you have anything else before we sign off for the night?
Nope, don't think so. But yeah, feel free to email me if you ever have any follow-up questions or anything else you want to check in on.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, folks.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Carry
Have a good
on,
evening.
carry on regardless.
Bye-bye.